You've probably walked past it 100 times this month. It's sitting quietly in your kitchen. No label screaming, life-changing, no warning, no urgency, just there. And yet, what if I told you that something this small, something you've ignored for years, could be influencing how your body feels, performs, and responds, especially as you get older, not in a dramatic overnight miracle way, but in a subtle, biological, compounding way. The kind of change you don't notice in a day, but you feel deeply over weeks. I'm Dr. Elena Hart, and welcome back to Dr. Elena Hart, Sexual Health and Wellness. And today, we're going to talk about something that sounds almost too simple to matter, until you understand what's actually happening inside your body. Cloves. Yes, cloves, but not the way most people use them. Not in tea, not in capsules, not sprinkled into food where the effect gets diluted and lost. We're talking about something very specific, chewing them. Slowly, deliberately, for about 60 seconds. Now I know what you're thinking. That sounds like one of those internet tricks, another random health hack. But stay with me, because this is where things start to get interesting, because when you look at how the body actually absorbs compounds, where they enter, how fast they reach circulation, you start to realize something most people completely miss. Not all methods of consumption are equal, and sometimes the simplest method is the most effective one. Now let's break this down in a way that actually makes sense. Inside cloves, there's a compound called eugenol. This is the powerhouse. This is what gives cloves their strong aroma, their warming sensation, and more importantly, their biological activity. And here's what makes it different. Eugenol doesn't just pass through your digestive system like most compounds. It can be absorbed rapidly through the tissues in your mouth, which means when you chew cloves, you're not waiting for digestion. You're creating immediate contact, immediate absorption, immediate signaling within minutes. And that changes everything, because now you're not just consuming something, you're activating a response. And that response touches multiple systems in your body, not just one. Now, before we go any further, let's be clear about something. This is not a magic fix. This is not a replacement for medical care, and it's definitely not a shortcut around lifestyle. But it is one of those small inputs that can create noticeable shifts over time, if used correctly. So what actually happens inside your body? Let's start with something most people care about, but rarely understand fully. Circulation. Your body runs on flow, blood flow, oxygen delivery, nutrient transport. And as we age, that flow becomes less efficient. Not because your body is failing, but because systems slow down. Now here's where cloves come in. Compounds like eugenol and beta-caryophyllene help support vascular function. In simple terms, they help your blood vessels relax and expand, which means better circulation, better delivery, better response. And when circulation improves, everything connected to it improves: energy, endurance, even physical response in intimate situations. Now think about that for a second, because most people chase complicated solutions while ignoring something fundamental: flow. Now let's go deeper, because this is where things get more interesting. Inflammation. Not the kind you feel immediately, like pain or swelling, but the kind that builds quietly over time. Low grade, chronic, almost invisible. This kind of inflammation affects everything: energy levels, recovery, hormonal balance, even mental clarity. And here's the problem. Most people don't even realize it's there. They just feel off, slower, heavier, less sharp. Now, compounds in cloves, especially eugenol, have been studied for their ability to support the body's natural inflammatory response. In simple terms, they help calm things down, not by shutting the system off, but by bringing it back into balance. And when that happens, your body starts functioning more efficiently again. Now here's something most people don't connect. blood sugar. Yes, this matters more than you think, because unstable blood sugar doesn't just affect metabolism, it affects energy, mood, focus, even hormonal signaling. And over time, that instability creates stress inside the body. Now, certain compounds in cloves have shown potential in supporting insulin sensitivity, helping your cells respond better, absorb nutrients more efficiently, and maintain more stable energy levels. Again, not a miracle, but a support system. Now let's shift to something that might surprise you: your brain, because what happens in your body is deeply connected to what happens in your mind. Focus, memory, clarity. These are not separate systems, they're integrated, and eugenol has been explored for its interaction with neurological pathways, particularly those involved in cognitive function. Now, I'm not saying chewing cloves will turn you into a genius overnight, but supporting these pathways, reducing oxidative stress, improving circulation, all contribute to a sharper, more responsive mind over time. And here's where everything starts to connect. Better circulation, lower inflammation, more stable energy, improved internal signaling. All of this creates an environment where your body can perform closer to its actual potential. And that includes sexual health, performance, response. Because those systems don't exist in isolation, they depend on everything we just talked about. Now let's bring this back to something practical. Because information without action does nothing. If you're going to try this, keep it simple. 2 whole cloves. Morning, before food, before coffee. Chew slowly, let the compounds release. Let them sit in your mouth briefly, then swallow. That's it. No overcomplication, no stacking 10 different things. Just consistency. And here's what I want you to pay attention to. Not dramatic changes, not unrealistic expectations, but subtle shifts. Energy in the morning, mental clarity, how your body feels during the day. Because those are often the first signals, and over time, those small shifts can build into something noticeable. But let me say something important here. Because this matters. If you have underlying health conditions, if you're on medication, or if something feels off in your body, do not rely on this alone. This is support, not treatment, and your health deserves proper attention. Now here's the bigger picture. Most people ignore small things because they don't seem powerful enough. But biology doesn't always work through big, dramatic changes. Sometimes it works through consistent, subtle inputs that compound over time. And the people who understand that are the ones who quietly see results, not overnight, but steadily. So the real question isn't, will this change everything instantly? The real question is, what happens if I give my body better inputs consistently? Because that's where real change lives. And once you start thinking that way, you stop chasing extremes, you start building foundations, and that's when things begin to shift. So if this opened your perspective even a little, stay with me, because next, we're going to connect this with something even more powerful. How your morning routine directly programs your body's hormonal and energy response for the entire day. And once you understand that, you don't just add habits, you start designing outcomes.